Well, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocols duly observed. I want to thank the organizers for giving me the platform to make this presentation. A lot has been said since we started yesterday, but now we are going to be talking about the informal sector. And because of our time, I'll probably skip a lot of things without losing the message. I'm asked to talk formalizing the informal sector, leveraging digital innovation for partnership, job creation, and policy reforms. My introduction of the informal sector will not be anything theoretical, but I will just say that the informal sector, as we all know it, is largely unregistered and unregulated. And I think that will suffice, because we know what we mean by the informal sector, but we know that the major issue about the informal sector is the lack of registration or identification of participants in that sector and lack of regulation. So it's largely unregistered and largely unregulated. I will go straight to describing the informal sector in a way that everyone in this all will probably understand it. This is a sector we largely ignore, but significantly important, even in terms of their contribution to the economy. And the only way we will understand it is for us to just narrow down the economy to a person, a particular person. You look at your household, and within the household, you try to understand what makes the household to be what it is. Most of us are here today, but at home, we probably have a domestic staff that is taking care of the house. We have a driver, we have a security man, and all the sorts that are even working directly with us, but mostly in an informal manner. There is nothing that regulates or even register what they do for us. But what they do for us is very, very significant. Otherwise, we will probably not be able to do all those other things that bring the resources that we have as a household. If we extend it further to certain other things, for instance, if your car breaks down, the mechanic that is going to attend to or fix the car is operating in this sector that we are talking about, despite the fact that, we feel less concerned about what happens to those sectors. So if we want to go by statistics of what we have as the informal sector, the National Bureau of Statistics captured about 40 million operators in that sector nationally. And if you look at that 40 million operators in that sector, based on the regionalization of what you find where, about 31% of that is in the southwestern part of Nigeria. And out of that 31%, 50% of that 31% is in Lagos State. In other words, if about 12 million of that 40 million is in the southwest, then about 6 million is in Lagos State alone. So what we are looking at, even based on records, is a quantum of people as much as 6 million that are operating freely without any form of registration or regulation. So what can we do to formalize this sector? And how do we go about the formalization of this sector? We said, a lot has been said about digitalization here, from yesterday to today. And that is one thing that we cannot run away from if we must capture this sector for every reasons, including revenue. Revenue is the least of the problem, even though we take it as the first problem, that we are trying to solve. But it's the least of the problem, particularly if we look at the capacity that this sector has. Why do I say so?
I like that.
If the sector is properly registered and captured, then the revenue we are looking for will be able to get conveniently. But if they remain the way they are, then we will not be able to get the revenue. The sector also has large potential, as demonstrated even with their existence, to create jobs, or what we call employment. Majority of the people that are employed, you find them in that sector. If you compare what you have in the informal sector in terms of employment as against what you have in the formal sector, you will see that the large cry from what we have. But our concentration is always on the formal or registered official sector in terms of concentration. So, beyond the revenue, the issue that we will be able to extract from the formal sector if we leverage on technology to formalize it is the fact that we will be able to regulate them, and then job creation opportunities are there. So how do we utilize the opportunities that we're talking about to be able to regulate or capture, formalize the informal sector? There are issues that have been highlighted in the paper. Unfortunately, they are not showing my slide. And these issues have to do with looking at the futures of the informal sector and trying to address the major problems that these characteristics of the informal sector present. So, in strategizing for the formalization of the informal sector, the first issue has to do with us developing a simplified registration and licensing processes. A study revealed that what we call the informal sector has about 72 different kind of activities. And if you have about 72 different kind of activities, then you must so recognize these 72 activities and develop a way of ensuring that these activities are captured and registered. So, simplifying the process of registering these various operators in their various sectors and licensing them is one thing that we need to do. Another is, how do we support this sector? Because mostly the majority of the people that operate in this sector are the people that consume majorly what we call government services. And I'll give a typical example. If we look at practically everybody that is in this hall, our children are going to private schools. So when you talk about education, the people that you find their children in the public school are largely the people that we are talking about in this informal sector. So they are the ones that will largely consume, that service of government. If we talk about health, the same thing. If anything happens to any of us here, the first point of call will be a private hospital, not a public hospital. But the people, the large majority that are operating in this informal sector are the consumers of the public services in terms of health services of government. So these people are the major consumers of the services that government renders. And for that reason, there's a need for us to have adequate information about them in terms of registering what they do, licensing what they do, and then be able to regulate what they do. They are also the ones whose operations and businesses cannot easily access finance or credit because of the informal nature of their activities. So for us to be able to attract them for the registration, the licensing, and the regulation, we have to look at this area of making access to finance and financial literacy accessible to them through interacting with them in their various categories that the study has revealed. Also, the issue of protection of these people in terms of ensuring that in the process of trying to extract from them what we call revenue of government, there is a lot of developing products that will make payment convenient for them. What do I mean? You want to collect money from the people in the market, and maybe what you are collecting as levies or rate is 5,000 naira, and you probably have not devised a means through which they can pay that 5,000 naira conveniently without leaving their business, because every minute that they lose, is money for them. So you must devise means of collecting the revenue that you want to collect from them in a convenient manner by meeting them at their various spots. Also, the issue of capacity development and training is relevant. There are so many organizations or associations that these various operators of the informal sector have formed themselves into, and the best way to be able to get them to easily agree to be registered, to be licensed, and to be regulated is for us to throw things at them that will make them see that we are trying to add value to their various businesses and professions. Also, we are talking about making the regulation of this sector to be as flexible as much as possible. And I will use a particular example for this. When you talk about the transportation sector, the state is largely...
Thank you very much.
The state is largely driven by the informal sector in the transport, and what the state is trying to do now is to migrate from that sector to providing public transportation that is not principally controlled by the informal sector. So, in a nutshell, because of our time, the informal sector play a significant role, and we can leverage on technology to be able to relate with them. We can leverage on technology to be able to get to know them, get to register them, get to license them, and get to regulate them. And ultimately, the revenue that is due from them, we will definitely get. Thank you very much.